Tonight, we delve into 3 events that have taken place and have an unsettling moment when reality itself seems to fracture, when the familiar becomes terrifyingly alien. So, let's dive into each story and turn down the lights, if you dare. Story 1. It began subtly, almost imperceptibly. Emily, my wife of 7 years, started doing little things that were off. She'd always hated coffee with sugar. But one morning, I found her stirring 3 spoonfuls into her mug, humming a tune I'd never heard. When I asked, she just smiled, a little too wide, and said she was trying new things. But her eyes, they didn't quite crinkle at the corners like they used to when she smiled genuinely. Then came the silences. Emily was always a talker, filling our home with stories. Suddenly there were long stretches where she'd just sit staring at a wall or out the window, completely still. If I spoke to her, she'd jump, as if startled from a deep trance. Her touch changed too. The way she held my hand felt different. The pressure wrong, her fingers colder than usual. One night I woke up to find her standing by the bed, just looking at me. Not in a loving way, but analytically. The moonlight cast strange shadows on her face, making her features seem sharper, almost predatory. I pretended to be asleep, my heart hammering against my ribs. Who was this woman standing over me? I started to question everything. Was this really Emily? I looked through old photographs, our wedding photos, trying to find clues. She would spend hours in front of the mirror, touching her face as if it were unfamiliar to her. At night, I'd hear her walking through the house, her footsteps echoing in the silence. It felt like living with a stranger. I started keeping a journal, noting down all the oddities. The entries grew longer and more disturbing. At night, I found her standing in the garden, staring up at the sky. She didn't respond when I called her name. Slowly, she turned to face me, her expression blank, devoid of any recognition. I found old letters she had written to me, full of love and warmth. The contrast was stark, almost painful. She started spending more time in the dark, sitting alone in rooms with the lights off, her eyes distant. I looked at our family photos, trying to remember the woman I married. Was she still in there somewhere? Sometimes I'd catch her whispering to herself, her words too soft to make out, her expression haunted. I started to feel like I was losing my mind. Was it all in my head, or was something truly wrong with Emily? One evening, I found her standing in the doorway, watching me with that eerie smile. It sent chills down my spine. Shadows seemed to move differently around her, as if they were alive, reacting to her presence. The moonlight would cast her in a predatory light, her features sharp and menacing. I lay awake at night, my mind racing with fear and confusion. Who was this woman sharing my bed? Another night, I woke up to find her standing over me again, her eyes cold and calculating. The clock struck midnight, and I felt a chill run down my spine. This wasn't Emily. It couldn't be. Her smile grew wider, more sinister, as if she knew my thoughts. I felt trapped, unable to move or speak. The shadows continuing to dance around her, creating an eerie, almost supernatural atmosphere. The moonlight made her look otherworldly, her features sharp and predatory. I lay there paralyzed with fear, my heart pounding in my chest. Is this really my Emily? She leaned in closer, her breath cold against my skin. I closed my eyes, praying for it to be a nightmare. When I opened my eyes, it was morning. She was gone, and I was alone in the bed. But the fear lingered. I looked at my reflection, wondering if I was losing my mind. Was it all a dream, or was something truly wrong with Emily? That evening, she stood in the doorway again, watching me with that eerie smile. The cycle continued, and I felt trapped in a never-ending nightmare. The shadows seemed to move with her, creating an atmosphere of dread and unease. I lay awake at night, my mind racing with fear and confusion, sweat dripping on my pillow as I lay there swallowing with a silent gulp, hoping this is just some deranged nightmare that I would soon awake from. Another night, I woke up to find her standing over me again. her eyes cold and calculating. The clock struck midnight, and I felt a chill run down my spine. This wasn't Emily. It couldn't be. Her smile grew wider, more sinister, as if she knew my thoughts. I felt trapped, unable to move or speak. The shadows danced around her in the background, creating an eerie, almost supernatural atmosphere. The moonlight made her look otherworldly, her features sharp and predatory. I lay there, paralyzed with fear, my heart pounding in my chest, fear gripping the collar of my neck. My eyes tightened shut, too afraid to open and find what's there. She leaned in closer, her breath cold against my skin. I closed my eyes, praying for it to be a nightmare. When I opened my eyes, it was morning. She was gone, and I was alone in the bed, but the fear lingered. I looked at my reflection, wondering if I was losing my mind. Damn it, was it all a dream, or was something truly wrong with Emily? That evening, she stood in the doorway again, watching me with that eerie smile. The cycle continued, and I felt trapped in a never-ending nightmare. The shadows seemed to move with her, creating an atmosphere of dread and unease. The clock struck midnight, and I felt a chill run down my spine. This wasn't my Emily. It couldn't be. She leaned in closer, her breath cold against my skin. I closed my eyes, praying for this to be a dream. I woke up the next morning to find her gone, vanished. I called around to see if anyone has seen or heard from her, but no one hadn't. It's been 2 weeks now, and still no Emily. Story 2. I'm a rideshare driver, mostly working the late shifts. You meet all sorts of people, see the city in its quiet, sometimes unsettling hours. But nothing prepared me for what happened last Thursday. It was around 2 a.m., a slow night, rain lashing against the windshield. I got a ping for a pickup in an older, more isolated part of town. The app showed the passenger's name as A Friend, no picture. I pulled up to the address, a dilapidated Victorian house. The porch light was out. I waited. After a few minutes, just as I was about to cancel, the rear door on the driver's side opened. I didn't see anyone approach. One moment the street was empty, the next, the door was ajar. I turned, expecting to see my passenger, but the back seat was empty. "Hello?" I called out. Then, the door closed softly, deliberately. I checked my mirrors, looked around. Nothing. But then, my app updated. Passenger A. Friend is in the vehicle. Proceed to destination. The destination was a cemetery on the other side of town. Story 3. It started subtly, like these things often do. I was brushing my teeth, half asleep, leaning over the bathroom sink. When I looked up, I noticed my reflection's eyes seemed to linger on mine for a fraction of a second longer than they should have after I blinked. I dismissed it as tiredness, a trick of the light. But the next morning it happened again. This time, I was sure. I blinked, and for a split second, the eyes staring back at me from the mirror remained open, unblinking, before catching up. Over the next few days, the lag became more pronounced. It wasn't just the blinking. Sometimes, when I'd turn my head, my reflection would be a hair slower to follow. It was deeply unsettling, like watching a poorly dubbed film. I started testing it, making quick gestures, watching intently. The reflection mimicked me, yes, but there was always that slight, unnerving delay. Then it stopped blinking altogether. I'd stand there blinking rapidly, and my reflection would just stare back, its eyes wide, unmoving. Its expression began to change too. While my face might be neutral, the reflection's face held a faint, almost imperceptible smirk, a look of knowing, of amusement. And with that, we draw the blinds on tonight's tales. The thought of the familiar turning malevolent, of unseen presences and reflections with minds of their own. It's enough to make you question the very fabric of your reality. These stories tap into primal fears, the fear of the unknown, the fear of losing oneself, or of having the sanctity of one's home, one's very being, violated by something inexplicable and sinister. Thank you for joining me for Storytime Tales as we explored these unsettling encounters. If you have a story of your own, something that made the hairs on the back of your neck stand up, feel free to share it in the comments below or email us at storytimetales01@gmail.com. You never know, your experience might just be the subject of a future narration. Sleep well, if you can.